We're so
You
happy that you're
too.
here. Yeah, we're excited that you're here. I was just chatting you up a little bit and I was saying how I always say I'm always excited. So I'm like, I got to use a different word. I'm like, maybe we'll use curious today because
Super interested.
yes, very interested. We were just talking about how sometimes you think of I'm Jocelyn, by the way, and this is
Hi,
Carmen.
I'm Carmen. Hi.
I'm Catherine.
Welcome
Welcome
to
to
the
the
chaos. Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah. We were just talking about how sometimes you think of a friend or you think of somebody and then they end up texting you or emailing you or calling you. And I was just wondering, and then Carmen's even talked about having dreams and then they seem to come true. So we were just talking about how, was that intuition? Was that just like a cycle of life? And I don't know. What do you think?
I always feel it's intuition. One can say it's within our cycle of life, right? I mean, we're all, I'm going to say, in different ways attuned to each other's frequencies, right?
Sure.
And different frequencies. But I always feel it's intuition, meaning, especially when we talk about dreaming, like that's where people, I'm going to say that's your first sign of your intuition. Meaning you go to sleep, you have a dream, and those are like prophetic dreams, right? So we have a dream, I don't know, them walking across the street and it's rainy, and you wake up and it's rainy and you're right in that street. So one could say, is that deja vu? But I'm saying no, because you just dreamt it. So that would be a prophetic dream,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I believe.
I love it. I was going to just piggyback off of that. Like, what about reoccurring dreams? Because I've had a reoccurring dream in the same place, the same house. It was my mom's old house, the house before, one of her houses that she had. And it's like, I had these reoccurring dreams, different things happen in the dreams, but it's always that house, and sometimes she's there and sometimes it's just like, feels like she's there, but she's not really actually like in the dream. You know what I'm saying? So I just am curious about that. Could that be me tapping into my mom? She's passed. So it's like, could that
Well,
be?
okay, but then, okay, so in terms of, we're going to call them visitation dreams, right?
Yeah.
There's always a fine line, because some visitation dreams are actually, I feel yours is a visitation dream, so I'm going to put that aside.
Okay.
But there are the visitation dreams that are actually called like trauma dreams, meaning your loved one or a past from something very traumatic. So sometimes they come through in those dreams. I don't want to use the word negative, but I'm going to have to use the word negative, meaning you see them scared, or you know what I mean? So those are generally trauma dreams. When it comes up with a nice feeling or a message or reminiscent of a place, these are more visitation dreams. Okay, because that's how we associate the spirit, as well as that's where spirit may have messages that come through. And for you in your house, if you go into the basement of the home, this would be your subconscious, right? So within basement, so we can even have I know I'm going a little off topic.
No, I like it.
On a little bit of a tangent. So if we're dreaming of a home, this could be childhood home, your own home, and we're going into the basement and we're in the basement. This is typically your subconscious and what is going on there. So some of that can link us to prophecy. Some of that can be, maybe we'll just put it out there. Not necessarily always, but trauma, right? Some of that could link to visitation. There's so many things there. So then you would have to take a step back and analyze the dream and how you feel. So this is the biggest thing for people, and they want to, I'm going to reach for my dream book. That's beautiful and all. But I'm saying no, because these are just, it's kind of like a catalog of meanings. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything really. It's how you feel, and what you associate with those feelings in there.
Ooh, I like that. I have to tell you, if we had to go to my mom's basement, there's a lot of partying that happened there. So I'd probably feel like my dream was telling me that I was in trouble, because she probably knew that we were having a lot of parties in the basement, when we were teenagers, just to be funny about it. But no, I like that. And I love having dreams and waking up. And then there's those dreams that stick with you the whole day, and you can't shake them. And you're just and I'm like, I should have written it down. Why didn't I write it down? I need to get a dream journal. Don't you think that would be something probably I should do. I should probably add it to the list. Add it to
Add
the
it to the
list.
list.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So Catherine, you're in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in cold Canada.
That's okay.
Icebox Canada. That's where I'm in.
Icebox. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Carmen was saying that it was warming up. It was 40s in in Michigan area. I'm in Florida, so it's
Nice.
it's very
Nice
nice
and
down
warm.
here. Yeah, it's super nice down here. So I love that you tune into vibrational energy and you're able to like see things. I mean, you have all the clairs. Is that what it is? I mean, you can see things and you can feel things, you can hear things and taste things.
Taste things, which I don't like.
I was gonna say
yeah, like sometimes I don't like that. Depending on the taste, right?
right.
As well as, with scent. And I feel all of us have, a little bit of clairalience. So if you've ever, just been sitting there and all of a sudden smoke, and you don't smoke, nobody's in the house that smokes, like that's your clairalience like coming through. Or you sit there and you're thinking banana bread and you smell it. No, it's not always just like, man, I could go for banana bread, right?
Right.
It's, you know what I mean? Sometimes there's a tie to it. So I feel for all of us, this would be our strongest for every person, right? Because we do associate a lot with scent, and that is typically how, if we're tuning in to even angels, we're tuning in to, spirit, a lot of scent can come through. For those of you that are interested in angels, Archangel Muriel, if you're familiar with her, she is really she's like the angel of peace and harmony. And, she just helps protect you with especially if you're an empath. And I feel, Carmen, you may be more empathic. So this could be, linked to Archangel Muriel, but with a lot of archangels, people will see lights or auras. And yes, sometimes people are like, well, is that my migraine? Yeah, sometimes it is. Okay. But she's the one that's linked to scent.
Did we freeze?
Oh, you froze, Carmen. You're talking about archangels and how she's an empath and she froze. It's the technical spirits.
Yeah.
You can keep going. She'll pop back on. She'll pop back
on. So to do with her, you would smell frankincense or really sweet smells versus her coming through as a color. Wow. So it's very interesting how, our clairs, especially like clairalience in terms of scent, can affect all of us. And this is the one that's more typical with the majority of us versus like the clairvoyance, clairaudience. Another one, I believe it's clairsentience, when, you trust your gut, like trust it, right?
Right. Yeah. She'll pop back on. Okay. She's good. Yeah. I was going to say, like, I have a lot of intuitive feelings sometimes. And sometimes, I'm like, I'll think of somebody, they'll call me, they'll message me, they'll email me, and I'm like, oh, we're just on the same page. Or sometimes like I'll just be walking down the road and I'll just, clearing my mind and I'm trying to just get some, clarity on something. And then I'll feel comforted by a couple thoughts or feelings, or I'll see some signs and symbols. And, at first you're kind of like, ooh, and then the next minute your logical brain sort of like stomps all over it, and you're like, oh, that was just random. That isn't real. And I was funny with it. You're mentioning smells because I was smelling garbage today. It's not, I know. And it's not garbage.
Like that is the worst.
That is
the worst.
Right. And down here in Florida, you smell a lot of sulfur and, they recondition the water and they use it a lot. But I was like, that's not what I was smelling. And I'm like, what is that? And then of course, my oldest son, who I'd taken to the doctor, is like, maybe it's you. And he's like, I don't smell it. I'm like, I don't know. Is it me? But it was like a weird random smell. And I have, and a lot of times some people will say like, oh, I'm just walking down the street and I smelled a scent. Like, how do you know that it was maybe like a clairvoyant experience versus maybe somebody just walked down the street and they were wearing like heavily perfumed scents? You know what I'm saying? Because down here in Florida, the air is very humid. So a lot of times scents do get trapped in the air,
I always feel the biggest way you would know, or the best way to know it always comes up like, you got to challenge yourself, is really, is anybody there? Meaning there's nobody that's walked by. Okay. There's no one in the room.
Yeah.
Why am I smelling this?
Yeah.
So to me, that is always, you know, connection to, we'll say connection to spirit,
Yeah.
or sometimes it can, and this has happened for people inclusive of myself. Let's say you have an aunt or a friend that wears a certain scent, you start smelling them and then they call you.
Yeah. Oh, right.
You get
That's
what
like
I mean?
yeah, like real life. It's like happens,
Like
coincides
real life.
together. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's really to pay attention to it and
Okay.
ask yourself, because I know we all get that way, right? We're all trapped within ourselves, so to speak.
Yeah.
To really just say, okay, no one was here, so I'm smelling this for a reason.
Right. Especially if, I guess, if you smelled smoke and you had a past family member that smoked and they're no longer with you, you know, you could smell smoke. So I want to know more about how you became clairvoyant. How did you become a clairvoyant medium? You know, like,
I didn't, you know,
I know, well,
it's
I
funny,
mean,
we talk about on the
you?
becoming,
Right.
I always was. It's
Right.
more, when did I decide to go and do this, like
Okay.
identify as this?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Was, you know, through the encouragement of my spouse. So I'm very blessed to have him. So he really encouraged me to come out with it. In terms of clairvoyance and mediumship, this is something I've always had. I don't know, like, I
Yeah.
feel
You're born
I'm
with
like,
it.
it's always been a part. It's been a part of me my entire life. So
Sure.
it was more kind of like, do I just do it?
Right.
And this isn't an easy world to bridge, so to speak, because we need the support from family and friends, right?
Right. Totally.
To come out with this, because as much as we think, you know, in woo-woo land, if you want to call it
Right.
that, or the spiritual community, that it's become more accepted, correct?
Yeah.
Like it
Oh,
really
absolutely.
has, like there's more people that are open, which is amazing, but there is still a lot of stigma around this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And a lot of judgment. And
Yes.
I feel that this may stay, unfortunately, because people are afraid of the unknown. And that's how I put it. I don't feel, you know, some are curious, but at the end of the day, it's fear.
Yeah. Also, I think too, some people are fearful because they don't know how people are going to receive them, or maybe that people will receive them too well and sort of like hound them, or, you know, want more from them than they're willing to be able to accept to give to those people. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe they haven't stepped into their gifts, right? They haven't accepted it. They don't have the support from the family, or they do, and they're just not interested. You know, so I'm thinking too of like kids, right? Like I'm thinking of like the younger population where,
Well, and that is, you know what, that's very true. A lot of the younger population, there are some very gifted children, but there is fear because of peers. There is fear because what family, even though they can be the most supportive family, it's the expectation from that.
right. So, so your husband helped you kind of come into and accept and sort of welcome your gifts, and then you stepped into it, and then was it just like, did everything just sort of flood into you where you were like smelling and tasting and feeling and hearing and
No, I was always smelling and tasting and
tasting?
hearing and feeling.
Oh my gosh.
Always. So in terms of him, it was, I had my son, like my first, I have 3 children.
Yeah, me
First son.
too.
Yeah. So I had my first son, and then it was like, okay, well, you know what? You should just go do this.
Right. You found your
And I
calling
was like,
almost. Yeah.
I don't know. Am I ready? Am I ready to go do this? I'm okay. I'm gonna start going to do this.
Did you seek other people in this sort of realm, you know, to maybe to like, did you feel like you had to get certified? Did you feel like you had to find a mentor or connect with a group of people where you guys could all kind of like all ships rising, you know, like the tide rises all together, you know? No.
No, I'm not gonna say that, but my husband had a family friend. And she, within my area, was a very gifted palmist. So, and you know, palmist psychic.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
I got in touch with her, and she became, I'm gonna say, my spiritual grandma. Like she Yeah, she was like a grandma to me. And she's passed now, but beautiful, beautiful lady. And between us was an instant connection. So it, although her gifts were different than mine,
Yeah.
she was very honest about the expectations within the industry. And she did, I'm going to say, validate
Yeah.
the push for me to just go do it.
I love that. I mean, I'm in voiceover. So, and that's why and I'm always interested in hearing when someone has like a calling or like they feel like there's a path that's just sort of waiting. I used to always think that voiceover was knocking on my door. It knocked on my door once, like when I was younger, and then I got a little bit old. I ignored it. And then it came, and it keeps knocking on your door. And if you don't address it, if you don't follow your path, then, sometimes like things can creep up on you. And I find it really curious and interesting and pretty amazing that you just embraced it, and you went for it. And I love that. And I felt though that I needed mentorship though, for me, for my path personally, for my.
A lot of people do need mentorship, but I feel it's almost that validation that it's safe to do this. Right.
Yeah, that's key.
And sometimes we need people some people need people to help fine tune their instrument. And that's how I'm going to put it. Like the instrument has to be there to fine tune, right?
Right.
But they need somebody to help them tune it.
So what if someone thought that they were intuitive, or maybe they were like suspecting that they were, clairvoyant? Like what could they do to fine tune it? Or what if they didn't want it, right? Like what if
there's a lot of people, I'm like, but there's a lot of people that have, I want to say professional, but
you want to say what?
Professional. I want to say have
professional
jobs.
Yes.
That have that are professionals, we'll say, and they're very gifted. And we're talking about nurses and police,
teachers,
etc. Very, very gifted people. And some of them, hear the knock and it's very loud and they leave their profession. Some of them keep that and attune with it. Do you know what I mean? You'll get the officer who has that, who, becomes an investigator because he's got that sixth sense. Like he just knows something's up, right?
Right.
So they just learn to tune it differently.
Now,
maybe.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. They learned it.
Ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I interrupted you and I feel bad, but you caught my attention because do you work with law enforcement or do you do investigative?
If asked, and I have in the past, if asked, I do. In terms of psychic and they're called psychic investigations.
Yeah.
If the family themselves seek me out, I will. I do not, I'm not one that cooperates with media because this is, when somebody goes missing or there's a case behind it, this is a sensitive topic.
Sure.
And I always stress that if they're looking for somebody to sensationalize the issue, I'm not your girl, because I won't do that because I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And I will work, like I said, with the with police as well as families closely, but I will not offer sensationalism or media perspectives to anything.
Right. That makes sense though.
Right. And they're very sensitive. And unfortunately, because there are those out there that look to sensationalize some of this, it does not help those that are out there that don't work in that way.
Right. What is it called? Like the ambulance chasers? Isn't that like
right.
a term?
Yeah,
not to like make it fun and light, but like there are, So
there are, and it's what it is, right?
Yeah. So I'm so glad that you're back, Carmen. And
technical chaos.
Yeah, I know. So I was interested in knowing a little bit about, I listened to your podcast. Clearly I listened to your podcast and it's called Dead Time Podcast. If anyone's listening and they want to like listen to some more episodes, it's very interesting. And I love it because you really have this like really broad perspective. You talk personally about your own experience and your journey that we've touched on a little bit tonight. And then also you bring in guests that, have different expertise on different topics, which I love. And one of the podcasts I was listening to that was with you, I was getting ready to go. I was going to be a juror. So I like downloaded a bunch of your episodes because I knew I was going to be sitting there for hours. And I brought a book too. And just in case I didn't have internet when I was waiting to be called, but you were talking about soul teams, right? You were talking about soul teams. And I've heard a little bit similar of a topic where they talk about where you have, there's like, you have a team of souls that come down and you guys are like a group of people that might not be in the same area or the same place, but you're living on this earth. And like, you sometimes just feel really connected to that person when you meet them. But I think you're talking about something different. You're talking about more of like a spiritual. So what is that? Like, what is a soul team from?
Well, I was talking about spirit teams.
Yeah. Oh, spirit team. Okay. I wrote it down wrong. It's chaos, whatever.
Soul teams. Yeah. Soul teams would be that, meaning we have a soul connection, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
To the people that come here. And that's why, like maybe you and Carolyn got together because there was that connection.
Right. Yeah.
So that does explain all these connections, and some connections are deeper and some aren't, right?
Yeah.
In terms of a spirit team, okay, so a spirit team is all the energies and entities that will give us, messages, warnings, information, and guidance. So that are connected to us, and some since birth, and some, I'm going to say, especially when we talk about our ancestors and past loved ones, they can come up later. Right.
Okay, right.
So we can say we can add on to our spirit team.
Right. Okay. And you said something really interesting in your podcast where you said that you are like your number one, right? Like you are your
Correct.
first
Correct.
and original, so that when you do have intuition or intuitive feelings or dreams, like it starts with you and then it builds outward. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Because higher self, we're connected to higher self.
Yes.
Higher self is you.
Right.
So I always tell people to just picture, like, you see you in the mirror and who's standing behind you. That's you. You know what I mean? Your essence, your aura. And the thing is, we have to learn to attune to that.
Yeah, I love that. So, okay, so maybe you can help me with this. I've been doing breath work. So, eventually you get into a meditative state. I've been on
Yes.
sort of had an awakening the last couple of years. I guess that's like the, popular term these days, right? And I've been doing some self work, right? So that's also a popular term, but I've been doing breath work. And at one point I got into a meditative state, and I was seeing some visions of like an owl or like a cheetah or some sort of like cat like cheetah.
Okay.
And then there was one point, oh my God, I have chills right now, but I was in a meditative state where I knew my body was there, but it was almost like it was dark, right? Like it was dark and everything was calm. And then I felt two presences on either side of me, almost like Native American. I just put that in my head, like to describe it. And it was almost like they were performing some sort of, I don't know, ritual. Like there was movement. Yeah. That's what it felt like. And that was the one time. And, of course, like you let your logical brain be like, oh, you were imagining it, da, da, da. And then another time I actually had something similar like that happen. And I felt something touch my forearm. It wasn't my dog. It wasn't my kids. There was nobody else in my fort with me. Do you think that, like, what do you think about all that?
I feel in terms of, when we see or feel that connection to animals, okay, that would be like a spirit animal.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can talk about, in terms of native spirituality, as well as other forms of spirituality. There's shamans, right?
Right.
And in association to that, like shamanism, okay, we can travel between worlds. So I'm going a little deeper on this one. And sometimes when if you've ever done, let's say a drumming circle.
No, I want to, though. I would love to.
Okay, so that would put you into like a trance, so to speak. Right. And sometimes if it's done with a shaman, they will help take you between these worlds to find your spirit animal.
Okay. I love
that. But with you, within your state, you found them.
Right. Yeah, I did. And there was colors. It was kind of crazy. I love it. You
Right.
know, there's actually drumming circles down here on the beach. They hold community drumming circles. The Native Americans come and they hold drumming circles on the beach. Yeah. And it's supposed to be really a really neat and cool experience. And I've wanted to do it. And every time I miss it. And I always find that if I miss something, if I keep missing it, then I'm not ready for it. Right. But like it will happen when it's supposed to happen. So I keep waiting. I keep waiting. Yeah,
Right.
I'm glad. Right when she was saying that you were empathic and that like maybe technology was like and just kicked you out.
Yeah, everything froze. And I was like, oh, well, there we go. I've had to restart my computer and I'm on my phone now, but it's all okay.
So do you meditate? Do you believe that meditation also helps you to sort of tap
I
into?
meditate. I also teach meditation.
Do you? Oh, that's awesome.
So I do believe that it's simply, and I always tell people it's just quieting yourself
It's really
because we're
hard to
so
do.
up in here.
Yeah.
We are, all of us, and people who are like, they're not, like, okay, like,
Right.
whatever. Do you meditate? Probably not. But we're all up in here,
Yeah.
right? So it's just learning to shut it off. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And really, that's it. And go between the spaces
Right.
and seeing what's there. So then we become more open to, we'll say higher self, our spirit team, etc. And we can even become more open to one another.
So
Right?
what, right. So spirit team, what besides ancestors, like, do you have like a whole spirit team, that
Do you mean, do I believe that I have?
yeah, well, yeah, I'm thinking they're standing all around you in a drumming circle. Like that's what I imagine. I'm a very imaginative person, but you know,
I feel that we all have a spirit team.
yeah,
Okay. Like every single person has a spirit team.
I
And
love it.
whether we choose to be open to it or not, because that's really the key,
Sure.
it like they're still there.
Yeah.
Because you will even have people who will be like, I don't believe in anything. Okay. So like those people, I don't believe in nothing. And all of a sudden something happens. And there's so many people that, let's say, like, we'll just say something traumatic, like an accident happens, and they're like, you know what? There was this person there and they weren't really there. And, or, I don't know how I survived this, but it felt like somebody was protecting me. That's your spirit team,
Right.
plain and simple. And then all of a sudden they're open. I
Yeah.
don't feel any of us are ever really closed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just we choose to ignore it.
Yeah, right. You reminded of me of a car accident that I was in when I was younger. And it was one of those things where the person behind me had said, "Oh, your tire's a little low," to the driver. And then the driver was like, "It's fine." And then we were driving and the back tire blew out and we ended up going
Wow.
head on. And I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, right? I wasn't wearing a seatbelt and neither was the person behind me. And he ended up flying over me and, trapping me, and I didn't go all the way out. But I remember telling everybody thought I was dead. So when I went back to school 2 weeks later, I was a ghost, like a real live ghost. But then I remember telling friends in my family that remember standing outside of the crash next to the paramedic and trying to talk to him and be like, "What's going on?" And apparently had been pulled out and strapped down. So I still remember that very vividly. And I argued with my dad. I was like, "No, I was standing, like I was
Yeah, but Cindy,
fine."
I feel you really were, because sometimes that would push you out of body.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because when I woke up in the hospital, I was like, "What the fuck?" Sorry, not to swear, but I mean, swearing happens. But I was like, "What is happening?" And I walked out of there without scratches. I don't know why you
And
just
that's
brought me to that.
actually very typical of some people when they're in surgeries. So you will have some people going through surgeries and saying, "Yeah, but I saw the guy cut me," and it's like, "No, you were asleep." "No, I saw that." So there are some people that are very capable
Yeah.
of having these out of body experiences. There's also, and I'm going to tell you a story. So this was many years ago, when I first chose to embrace my gifts. My spiritual grandma,
Right.
she was like, "Okay," she always said honey. So she was always, "Okay, honey, okay, honey, you're gonna come with me to do this thing. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, really? Okay, I'm kind of scared. Anyway, so I went, and I was like doing a reading session for this man, and he, as soon as he sat down, he's like, you do know I'm a flyer. And I'm like, a flyer? I've never heard that term. He's like, yeah, I'll see you in your dreams. And I shit you, sorry for swearing.
No.
A week later, I was dreaming with this man. I woke myself up, and I was scared to go to sleep because I'm like, oh, he's psychically haunting me.
What is a flyer? Like now I'm like,
flyer, right? So these are quite often, if you've ever heard about astral travel.
yes, I have.
Right. So these are people who can do the out of body and astral travel. And it's just natural to them to do that. But I had never till that point heard of the term a flyer. So
Wow.
it was very interesting and very scary
Right.
at the same time. It's a like little creepy old man.
It was in your
would say
dreams.
that. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening?
Can you block? Can you like put up boundaries, like spiritual boundaries and blocks, so that doesn't happen again? Or, like, do you walk in
I
the
feel you
store?
can.
Yeah.
We can learn to, and then that's where lucid dreaming comes into it, right? Like people, we can learn to lucid dream, and we can learn to have controls within our dreams. However, sometimes you cannot.
Right.
Meaning you might have a dream, and sometimes this is common with sleep paralysis, right?
Right.
That you're like, oh my God, it's happening. I can't move. Why can't I stop this? You can't control that.
Right.
One would think we can, but we can't. But there's also, a fine line between sleep paralysis and actually seeing like certain phenomena there.
Okay.
So this is another interesting topic that has been I'm going to say a creepy passion project of mine.
Okay.
And that's I call it creepy passion project because
Right,
it's
like
creepy.
paranormal.
It gives me the creeps.
Right.
I do work with a paranormal group from time to time, but that's not that. This is to do with, I'm not quite sure if you guys have ever heard of the Hat Man.
I mean, that
No.
sounds familiar, but I hear a lot about different things from my kids, like I don't even know what they talk about, but yeah. What is this? Tell me more.
So the Hat Man would come up like a dark, shadowy figure with a hat, like wearing a fedora, but he's not a shadow person. Okay.
Right.
He's just a shadowy, it's unreal. And because of, my gifts, I've always seen spirit and things. So nothing really creeps me out but that.
So